Okay, who's ready to get this party started? Hello, that is more like it. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Denise Van Buren. I'm currently president of the Beacon Historical Society. We're all volunteer, nearly 400 members. We're probably the largest local historical society in the Hudson River Valley, and it's because of great supporters like you who love Beacon and our history. So thank you so much for being here tonight when you're going to share a little of your own personal connection to Beacon with a great story and hopefully a fun story or two to go along with it. So if you would, please rise. And we will begin our meeting as we always do with a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. So we did have a mic stand for tonight, but it wasn't cooperating, and I have a handheld microphone. So when you come up, if you're comfortable holding it, you can hold it, or I can hold it for you. We thought this would work, but Pete tells me no, it doesn't. So we're back in the handheld business, so I appreciate your patience. I want to begin by thanking the Elks Club for allowing us to have our meetings here. They don't charge us anything. There's free parking, as you know. It's air conditioned, although I'm a little warm right now. Are you warm? Are you okay? It's warm, isn't it? Okay. Well, the second thing, when my husband gets back, tell him to go find Mike and make it a little cooler in here, please. My husband had to go home because I forgot the other door prize for tonight. I want to recognize the Elks because they just on July the 17th celebrated their centennial, and their history of service and generosity here in this community is astounding, from Hammond and Memorial Fields to scholarships and all sorts of programming for kids and special needs children. They've been supportive of the Beacon Historical Society and so many other organizations. So would you join me in giving the Elks a round of applause? And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask the Elks who are here to please stand. Jean and Emily are just two brand new members. Everyone stand. If you're an Elk, please stand. So thank you. A round of applause for these great folks. And they're always looking for new members, and the ability to access the lodge headquarters here is just one of many benefits of being an Elk. I wanted to invite you to our great exhibit, Made in Beacon. If you haven't gone up yet, please come visit us up at our headquarters Thursday mornings, 10 to noon, or Saturdays, 1 to 3. You better hurry up, because it's going to end in August. Okay, so please come up and see it. I know that you'll enjoy it. It's really well done, and our Diane Lapis and Diane Murphy just did a fabulous job with it. Coming up in August is our second annual ferry boat ride across the Hudson River. We're going to ride across on the ferry. We're going to have dinner at Billy Joe's and come back on the last ferry of the night. Your August newsletter will tell you how to reserve your spot. Even though you're going to pay on your own, order on your own, it's important that I know how many people are coming for two reasons. First of all, Billy Joe's on a busy summer night is going to save us space in the restaurant. So I need to be honest with them. So be courteous and tell me if you're planning to come. And if you tell me you're planning to come, please, because they're being really great to us. And also, I'm going to donate, as I did last year, your ferry ride back and forth. So I need to know how many tickets to buy. So you'll see in the newsletter, all you have to do is just send me an email. Tell me, I'm John Smith, and I have 4 people in my party. That's all I need to know. Trying to make it as easy as possible. And how many went last year? What do you think? Was it a good time? Yes. So you don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good time. We're always the 4th Tuesday of the month. I believe it's the 27th, right? And we're going to meet at about 5:30 at the train station. My husband and I are going to go down, scope it out, and make sure there's still parking spots down there. You know, last year we were on the coattails of COVID and people weren't back in the office yet. But I'm hoping we shouldn't have any trouble finding parking spots at that hour of the day on that side of the river, because people that go in really early come home early, and typically spots do open up. And we're, as I said, just going to go across the river at Billy Joe's. You'll order what you want off the menu. You can sit with whoever you want to sit with. I'm going to pass out Beacon trivia for you, and then we're going to take the last ferry home. So easy peasy. It's going to be a lot of fun, I promise. I wanted to again ask you, if you would, to please follow us on social media. We now have about 5,700 followers on Facebook. We post a lot of great content. A lot of it is Bob's past newsletter articles, and the public is really responding to it. But if you would go on and follow us and then like our content and share it, it helps spread the word about the Beacon Historical Society. And before we begin our program, I just have one announcement. Here's the exalted ruler of the Elks, the Centennial ruler, Mike Sanzarella. Give him a round of applause because he's really our host here. He loves it when I embarrass him for any reason. After we went upstairs, Mike, it did kind of kick on a little bit, but the consensus was it was slightly warm down here. You will see in your newsletter, we are planning for our 8th annual Beacons of History Award. It will be held on November 7th. We always have it the Thursday after Election Day. It's super easy to remember it, right, Tenny? And this year we have 2 more great honorees because, it just keeps getting better and better, honestly. Our group honoree this year is going to be the Beacon Volunteer Ambulance Corps. Isn't that great? So they have been serving us again as volunteers since for 66 years now. Last year was their 65th anniversary. So please come out and help us honor Beacon Volunteer Ambulance Corps. And then in the individual category, we're going back to our roots. When we first started the award, we honored Hudson Beach Glass for taking one of our great Main Street buildings and giving it new life. And this year we're going to honor Ken from Brothers Restaurant. You know, he was one of the early, really pioneers in the East End at a time before it really experienced its development and its renaissance. He now has purchased several other buildings on Main Street. His daughter now has a Main Street shop, so there are 2 generations here. He was born in Kosovo. And, maybe Sarajevo. Hold that. But you'll see it in your newsletter when it comes. Sorry. This is all just coming together real time. And he's a naturalized citizen. He's really the American dream. And I love the fact that we are honoring someone who represents the generations of our families who came from other countries and settled here in Beacon. He's a modern day illustration of that. So look forward to getting your invitation and reading more about that. It's November the 7th at the Roundhouse. But Andy has a message for you about replying to it. Go ahead, Andy. What is it?
Bye, girl.
Send your ticket in early because when we sell out up there, There's, in theory, space for 210. We have squeezed in 220 before. But once that's done, it's done. And I can't accommodate anybody else. So I want members to have the first access to those tickets. When you get that invitation, please, ladies and gentlemen, send it right back. Okay, with that, shall we begin our program? All right. If you have an object with you, you should have a number. Right? And there's no real science to this. We don't have to follow it, religiously. But I just thought it would kind of help keep us organized. What I've done is prepare the items that were here on the front tables, a little bit of information about them, crib notes for me to keep me honest, especially when it comes to dates. But I couldn't do this program without our wonderful volunteers at the Historical Society, and especially our Vice President and Director of Collections, Diane Murphy, who shies away from publicity, but stand up so we can give you a big round of applause. Diane is actually going to be my Vanna White tonight. So if you want to come forward, we'll start, and you're going to, maybe hold up the first item. Why don't we start with Judy Stella is here, and her uncle was Joseph Stella, who was the first detective in the police department here in Beacon. And Judy was nice enough to donate to us. You can kind of walk it around a little bit. A lot of his various medals and ribbons that he earned and gathered during the course of his 30 years in the Beacon Police Department. He was a really interesting individual who brought fingerprinting to the Beacon Police Department. He also had the photography lab built in the basement of the Beacon Police Department so that they didn't have to rely on a commercial printer, not only to save money, but even in terms of privacy and respecting the photographs that were being taken of things like murder cases. So he was really a criminologist and very well respected. He went on and served as the Commissioner of Accounts, I believe, as well. So we remember tonight not only Joseph Stella, who retired as a detective, but also all the men and now women who have been members of the Beacon Police Department. We're so grateful for their service to us. So very good. We'll do a second one. I had some more information about him. He was born 1903 in Burnsville. He was in World War I, and I found this fascinating. This is Joseph Stella again. He served with the 5th Cavalry in World War I, and they remained stateside to guard the Mexican border. And I never knew we did that, but apparently we were worried in World War I about who might come over that border. He retired as a detective lieutenant in 1965, and he said that he had worked on 4 different murder cases. That was his strongest recollection when he retired. So thank you, Diane, for that. All right, Diane, you want to come over to this table? We'll need a participant for our black ball experiment here. And I think I have, is it this one? No, that's it. Yep. Okay, so everybody knows when you say somebody's been blackballed, right? Well, how many of you have actually seen? Is it the other table? Oh, sorry, it's a wooden box. I'm sorry, I'm bad. No, yeah, save that one. Okay. So Beacon has had many fraternal organizations well beyond the Elks for the years. You all know that. Kiwanis and Rotary, DAR, the Ancient Order of Redmond, the Odd Fellows, and so on and so forth. Many of them had membership voting, and voting with black balls actually dates all the way back to the 1700s, actually the 1600s. This is for clubs where it's not a majority membership, where somebody says you're going to be voted on by the assembly at large. One person has the ability to blackball you. So, Paul Gromkowski, Diane, back up right there. He's in that colorful shirt. Paul Gromkowski, I want you to pick up a ball. You can close it. Yeah, no, you can leave that up. Did you? Okay, and you can vote to either keep me in the club or give me the black ball. You tell us which ball you're going to put through, and then Diane will tell us what the vote was. She's going to turn it around now, and she's going to look in the other side of the box. And what color ball did he put in there? He's building the suspense. Thank you, Mr. Gromkowski, for letting me be in your club. Thank you. So, we don't, unfortunately, know where this particular black ball, I should call it a voting box, came from, right? It wasn't really a black ball box. A ballot box? That's what it's called? Okay. But there you have it. So you see how easy this is? You're just going to come up and talk a little bit about the item that you have and tell us a little bit about it. So before I go on to my collections, why don't I call up whoever had lucky number 1? All right, Jean Haidt is going to come up and share a couple things with us, and I will be happy to hold the microphone because her hands are full, as you see.
So, Tom and I started dating the beginning of our senior year, and this is his yearbook, and that's us in our cap and gown.
And that's what year? Tell them.
1960. My yearbook, Jean D'Addario's diploma, and Robert Haight's diploma, but this is a picture of me in half the size that I am now, and the dress that I wore in 1960 to our senior prom.
Isn't that great?
Okay.
My God, tell us how you managed to find it and how you kept it in such great shape all these years.
I don't know why. It was just in a plastic bag in the attic. And last month you said, I'm sure the Haight's are going to find a bunch of stuff. So I went in the attic and I pulled this out along with a bunch of other stuff.
Well, I'm going to give Mildred, your mother, some credit. Is that fair? Because she probably was part of that, saving it.
This morning and they said, you had to have kept your prom dress, but your mother had to have kept your communion dress.
Aha. Did you have that to show us too? Well, bring it. Come on, bring it up. Can someone take these, Denny, take these things from her, would you? Whatever. Okay.
This is 1950. I made my first Holy Communion at St. John's. 4 years prior to that, my grandparents had a whole bunch of us live on Henry Street together. So my cousin Carol and Larry and my sister Barbara made their first Holy Communion. And then in 1950, my cousin Donald, Larry, and I all made First Communion at St. John's. And this is the dress that I wore.
Wow. Wow, great. Anything else you're hiding over there you want to share with us? Good. How about a round of applause for number 1, Jean Haidt. Nicely done. And this is what it is, just a great night of memories. Who had number 2 tonight? When you know your number is almost up, please be prepared so that we don't have a lot of downtime. We all know the famous Diane Seydoux. And we know she's going to delight us. And again, we want to turn towards the camera. I think most of you know that we live stream our meetings, and then we keep them, a recording of it available afterward on our website, should you want to see it. So without further ado, here's Diane Seydoux.
Okay. Remember the hat factory, Mr. John? Okay, I work at a thrift shop in Fishkill, and you got to see what comes in there. Families, people pass, and they don't want it, and so I'm donating this hat, Mr. John.
Will you model it for us?
No.
That is beautiful. Anybody else remember Mr. Johns? Yes, great. That is wonderful. Thank you. The trick is keeping your eye open for these kind of things in places like thrift stores, right? So we can save them and keep them for future generations. So she's got more.
Yeah, this. All right. I went to an estate sale a bit ago in Beacon, and I got these shoe forms for $10. They didn't want it. Now, I believe that these came from Davis Box Toe because it was an estate sale in Beacon, New York, and my dad worked at Davis Box Toe, so this meant a lot to me. But I'm donating this.
Thank you. Where was Davis Box Toe? I'm not familiar with this location. Anybody remember?
Maple. I think it was Maple. Yeah.
This is a big one, she says. So be prepared, everybody. Can you all see and hear in the back?
It's a form to make shoes.
It appears to be metal, right, Diane? Made of metal?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, just while I have you up here, tell me a little bit about your family. You were born in Beacon.
No, I was born in Wappingers.
Okay. They let you in anyway. Okay. Married a local yokel. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. How long have you lived in Beacon?
You mean in Fishkill?
Well.
In Fishkill. How long, Jim? 52 years.
Just 52 years. So I'm so glad. They're so supportive of the historical site. We're so lucky to have them in our community. Jim and Diane Seedor, thank you so much for bringing those. Sure, we'll figure that out.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go on and do another one, and then we'll go back to some of the items that you brought. So we all know that through the decades, Beacon certainly was recognized as the hat capital of New York State, but it also had, frankly, more than its fair share of institutions, mental asylums. We all know about Madiwan State Hospital for the Criminally Insane. Many of us know about Craig House. But also there was Riverview Sanitarium, which was located on Ferry Street. And I do want to read a little bit for you. One advertisement stated that it, quote, treated the nervous, the overworked, I think we all fall into those categories, and those under the bondage of the habit of alcohol and opium. So today's troubles, what's old is new again, right? As early as the 1890s, there at Riverview, doctors Kitteridge and Watson were noted for their electricity treatments on patients, cases of, quote, nervous prostration, paralysis, insomnia, and those nervous affections due, and just be prepared for the shock of what they're blaming as the cause of those nervous affections, uterine and ovarian disorders. So apparently if you have one of those items, you're prone to these things. Well, we know from Riverview Sanitarium that they were doing electric treatments. We have quite a few bits of documentation, but what Diane is showing you is an actual electrical machine that would have been used on one of the patients. It actually came to us through the estate of Francis Dowdy. I don't know if any of you remember Mr. Dowdy. He was still here when I came to Beacon in the 80s. He had been here, his family, for generations, and they collected many things. And this is actually used on patients. They would have attached it to the patient's head. And it was a hand crank because it even predates, electricity that was, widely distributed. We don't know how it came into his possession, but it's a great quirky thing, right? So, okay. And then speaking of sanitariums, I know many of us remember the Craig House, right? Okay, not so long ago. I was the last chairman of the board there before we sold it. Its heydays, however, were the 1920s to the 1950s. And if you grew up in Beacon, you certainly know that it was a very rarefied place to be if you or your family required any kind of mental health treatment. Began, of course, as the 1861 home of Civil War General Joseph Howland and his wife. Doesn't become Craig House until 1915. when Dr. Slocum acquires it for his then very novel treatment. It was named one of the top 5 mental institutions in 1934-5, and Fortune magazine described it as this, quote, "There are no locked doors, no barred windows in individual cottages that are scattered all over the estate. There are several employees devoted to every single patient, almost 100 nurses, scores of men working on the ground, 6 doctors, dozens of cooks, waitresses, chauffeurs, etc." This is Fortune magazine. Minimum rates are $150 a week, a maximum of 4 or 5 times that much. You get the atmosphere of an upper-class home with Dr. C. Jonathan Slocum and his wife in the roles of host and hostess. He and his vivacious social wife own 99% of the stock of Craig House. I don't know who owned the other 1%. Dr. Slocum, again, this is from Fortune, detests psychoanalysis and will have none of it. His practical psychotherapy consists simply of getting on friendly terms with the patient, visiting him or her daily to talk over their problems, and giving them advice and encouragement. So we know, and you know if you grew up in Beacon, there were many amenities to be found there, right? Anybody play golf on the Craig House Golf Course? A few? Peter in the back. Ian McDonald played regularly. You didn't have to be a patient, he tells me. But you could, the public could play in there. But they also had indoor and outdoor swimming pools. Most of you know that. And a stable with 6 riding horses. They had tennis courts, a baseball field, and a gymnasium in the former Tyranda School. And tonight, Diane is displaying one of the many trophies that were presented there to the patients, I guess, who were playing on tournaments with them. This was actually a handball tournament. And I'm not exactly sure how we came to acquire this, but all of these items are great examples of the things that we're looking for to add to our collection so that we can properly and thoroughly tell the story of Beacon and its really fascinating history from 2 small villages that merged in 1913 to become the city we know today. So thank you to those who donate things to us. Thank you to people who rescue things off of auctions and provide them to us for our collection, because when researchers come, this is how we're able to illustrate these chapters for them. Diane Lapis today had some folks in researching Camp Nishkadagat down south of the city, if you know that story. And she's our resident expert on that. Okay, so with that, I think we're only up to number 3? 3. Okay, number 3. Don't hold anything back. Bob Haight. Now you're going to have to let me hold the microphone to you and face the camera, if you would, sir.
Okay.
You don't see this every day, ladies and gentlemen.
These are cap guns that I got when I was a little kid. This was I bought this from Screwmakers. My grandmother worked in Screwmakers back in the 40s, 1940s. And I saw these guns in there, and I bugged my parents and my grandmother about it, and they bought me this set of Roy Rogers guns, if you believe. Remember Roy Rogers? Yeah. These were his guns that I had to have.
Wow.
Okay.
It's a little holster like
And a little holster, 2 holsters. With 2 holsters, 2 guns in it, just like...
in remarkable condition, aren't they? Where were these all these years?
Up in the attic.
I want up in that attic, seriously.
And then when I got a little bit older, there was Western Auto, and I went into Western Auto, and I was probably about 11, 12 years old. And I saw this here, and it was like a Colt 45. And I said, I got to have that, because we were out with the kids, and that was a big thing in those days. I don't know if any of you are familiar, some of the old people are, what were cap guns, and that's what these were, a cap gun, a roll of caps that you put through there, and they fired. They did that.
I can still smell it. Can you smell a cap gun when you think about it? So, great job. Thank you. And you have something else for us.
Well, the only thing that I wanted to gives my age. And what this is, I don't know if anybody here remembers or not, but in the Second World War, they had ration books that had to go out. And there's a little tickets in here that you had. If you wanted to buy butter or eggs or whatever, you had to go with your tickets to give them out. And this was my ration books. My name is on here. This is my personal ration book.
So you were about how old at that time?
Probably 1 or 2.
So they were given even for children. Children were given portions. I didn't realize that.
Yep, wow. For kids, yep.
Wow, very good. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what year you were born in Beacon.
I was born in Cold Spring. We moved to the Beacon, this is 43 Beacon Street. We lived on there for about a year. My father built a house in Glenham, and that's really where I grew up. I was in Glenham, and I was there until I went into the service. I got married and moved into Beacon. That's it.
That temptress gene, she got you. That temptress gene got you to move to Beacon. So, how about a round of applause? Thank you. You both are great. Thank you so much. Okay, are we up to number 4? I'm having so much fun I can't even keep count. So Sharon and Bob Pine are members of the Beacon Historical Society. We're so happy to have them. She's a terrific photographer. He's a great researcher online. They've been really terrific to us, and I was so pleased to see them come in with a bag tonight because they've got something to tell us about. Sharon was my children's teacher at St. John's School. She's the first person who, a terrible mother that I was, told me when he was in 3rd grade my son needed glasses, and I said, "What?" It was a shock to me.
Well, you weren't the first person I told.
She said he keeps coming up to the board to read things. So anyway, I'm never going to get the Mother of the Year award, I guess. Sharon, here we go.
What I have here is a S&H green stamps. It's a full book. I found it when we were cleaning out the family home when my mother passed. On the back, it has grants. Wow. And my husband did some research for me.
Great.
Okay. Well, actually, it says 1959. However, my husband found that grants started it in 1961. Okay. The program started in 1896.
Wow.
Now, you could redeem, well, you know what? Let me do this first. Okay. You would go to grants and some other places. I don't really know. I know Hetling Brothers, I think. I'm sure there were quite a few others. I can remember these books. I can remember my mother putting them in. I don't remember anything that she got with it, you know. But one thing was really funny. This is a advertisement, and I'll show you the bigger one. That was advertising that Grants was going to, you know, give out stamps. And they had a sale. I never knew Grants had sales. I just thought it was the same price all the time. Right. But here it says Bye Bye Baby. And this was 1961. And I got Bye Bye Baby for one Christmas. So I'm thinking Santa probably bought it on sale and got some green stamps.
Yeah. Or Santa used her green stamps to buy it. Even better.
Yeah. Well, no, she couldn't do that.
Okay.
Because what you did, obviously, for every 10 cents you spent, you would get one green stamp. Okay? This book has 1,080 green stamps in it. That's one book.
Somebody do the math. Denny, you're the mathematician here. 1,000 stamps at 10 cents each. Okay. She was a shopper, your mother.
Well, grants, everybody, you know, right? Think about that. There weren't that many stores back then.
Right. Anybody else remember S&H green stamps? Yeah? Great.
And you save them. Then you redeem them. You could redeem them in Poughkeepsie or Middletown, okay? They had an idea book. So you look through it. And I'm trying to think, there was some other book I remember that you could, you know, redeem things, but I don't remember. Anyway, and you would pick up your merchandise.
Okay. So you brought them up and you had to pick things out of the specific book.
I guess so.
Okay.
I guess you would. They gave you the book. They gave you this book. They gave you the idea book.
Yeah.
And I suppose you went with your stamps after looking at what you wanted to redeem it for.
Yeah.
And you went to either Poughkeepsie or to Middletown to do that.
Very good. Good. What a great item. How about a round of applause for Sharon? Thank you so much.
Do you remember green stamps?
I was born in 61, so I must have been on the cusp. I remember a lot of J.C. Penney catalog shopping, but I don't remember S&H green stamps. So, all right, I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and we're going to do a little bit of business advertising ephemera that we have here. Ephemera, as most of you know, are things like tickets, trading cards, stamps, programs, and includes things that are really just meant for one use, an immediate purpose, and then you throw it away. So a program from a show or something like that. Matchbook covers are a great example of them, and Diane's going to walk around some of our matchbook covers that we have from local bars and restaurants. Now, I don't have to tell anybody here that unlike today, smoking was very common. We're going to talk about a couple things here tonight that, through better knowledge and better taste, people don't do any longer, but smoking was very common. Anybody want to guess when it hit its peak, smoking in the United States? What year? It was actually 1954. So many GIs came home and they had been, smoking there when they were overseas. And anybody want to guess about what percentage of people in that 1954 peak, about what percentage were smokers? 45. So almost about 1 in 2 were smokers after World War II. But astounding to me is the fact that that number remained at 40% right up until the 1970s. So, then the sea change came with better education. Smoking was widely accepted, as we all know. Who remembers doing it in restaurants, hospitals, airplanes, medical, things like that? So our matchbook cover collection is, believe it or not, a fairly common hobby, especially because smoking is now so much less common. As of April of 2023, eBay had 400,000 matchbooks for sale, if you're thinking of getting into the collecting business. Some of them sell for thousands of dollars. For example, a 1927 matchbook commemorating a dinner that honored Charles Lindbergh recently sold for $6,000. So we do have one other quick advertising item that Diane is going to walk around for you. We'll show it to Denny first and see if he can figure out what it was from. It's from Piccolo's Meat Market. Anybody remember them? They were on Main Street, Piccolo's. It's a cute little bit of Beacon history. For toothpicks, he knew, right? So they didn't have floss picks then. Apparently it was more common for you to be cleaning your dental. These are things I'm talking about we don't do much of anymore in public. But toothpicks will be there and where better than a meat market, right? Diane can demonstrate. You actually touch the little woodpecker and he would go down and he would retrieve the toothpick and you would take it from there. So there was some concern for sanitation back when this was, but just an interesting little piece. And again, things we find now on the internet. eBay has been a boon for us in terms of being able to bring things back to Beacon that were once here. So I'm going to do one more, and then we'll call up the next number. So this is going to be a favorite. Diane Lapis, why don't you help me out with the Madiwan hat? Jessica Greenstein of Highland contacted us to donate a women's faux beaver hat that was made here at the Madiwan Manufacturing Company. That, of course, was our first hat factory ever. It opened in 1864 in what we know as the Roundhouse in the complex at 10 East Main Street. This hat, now Jessica lives in Highland, belonged to her grandmother, Jolena Van Nile Effelnink, who... we have a photograph of her grandmother wearing it, and the granddaughter thinks she purchased it in Rochester, New York. That's where the box is from, but it has the label inside of the Madiwan Manufacturing Company. She thinks her grandmother actually wore it on her wedding day. According to a trade brochure that was published in 1889, really, really early, Madiwan Manufacturing was one of the largest wool factories in the United States. Anybody want to guess how many hats they made in a week? This is in the 1890s, right? When hats were required. Men and women all wore hats, right? Want to make a guess how many they were making? 2,500 dozen hats a week. So Denny's going to have to multiply 2,500 times 12. And they had an astounding 500 workers making hats in one factory. We had multiple large factories here in Beacon. So that wonderful hat, to have it returned here to Beacon, is really special to us. And we thank Diane for helping us now return another one from another hat shop. Thousands of more were made in places like the Tioronda Hat Shop. That was down where the Madam Brett Mill Park is, right? It became No Sting Pin Ticket. A lot of us know it as. Cardiganers, Panama Hat Company, and of course, New York was the hat capital of New York, second only to Danbury, Connecticut in the production of hats. All right, who knows that they have the next number? Diane Murphy herself, our vice president and the woman who keeps all of this together. So, Diane, I want you to make sure you face the camera, and I'm going to hold the microphone for you.
Okay, now I have some school memories. And the first thing I'd like to show is my kindergarten class photo from 1957, JV Forza School. My teacher, Miss Tiley, is in the center. And please note, 30 kids.
No aid.
One teacher. One teacher.
Right. Now, weren't you the first class, or your family were among the first class to go to Forrestal? Is that right?
Yes, but not me.
Not you.
No, Linda.
The famous Linda, her sister Linda. How many girls were in your family?
Well, we have Barbara, Linda, Kathleen, Maureen, and me.
And the famous Bob. Rounded it out. So.
Yeah. All right, I have some more mementos from JV Forza School. And I don't know if you can see this, but this is a JV Forza School charm bracelet. Probably maybe third grade I got this. And some more. This was my famous athletic award from JV Forza School. Any idea what I got it for?
Running track?
Running track, you would think so? No. Jump roping.
We want a demonstration of that for the next meeting. Things we did as children for the next meeting.
Okay, then I'm going to fast forward to high school, and I found some playbills from high school. And this was my sister's play, Kathleen Murphy. She starred in We Have Always Lived in a Castle with Lenny Romanelli, Glenn Cassell, and Janet Nelson. Yeah, it was your grade, wasn't it? Yeah. And as we know, Glenn Cassell went on to become a director and Broadway director. And then 2 years later, I got on the stage in Pullman Car Hiawatha. I was not a star. I had one line.
Do you remember it?
I do indeed.
Let's hear it.
You want to hear it? Yeah. Young man, keep your feet out of my face.
A round of applause for remembering that all these years later. Well done.
And to prove I really did say that, I have photos. And here's some photos. And here's some photos. And I have also newspaper clippings from Pullman Car Hiawatha. So those are my memories from.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Diane. And please recognize Diane for all she does for the Historical Society. There's a key core group of volunteers, and she is one of them that make it all possible. Thank you. Okay, what number were you? 7? No, 5. So 6. Number 6. Don't hide. Come on. Mother and daughter tag team here, the Murnanes. Okay, very good. Okay, good. I think most of you know Emily. Yes, yep. And her lovely mother, Brenda, who has the fabulous what? Soap store on Main Street. So we have to support them. They've been wonderfully generous to us at the Historical Society. So with that, Emily, the newest Elk and Beacon, tell us what you brought tonight.
So the artifact that we have is not related to my family's personal history. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm old enough for that yet. But we do have an artifact from my mother's collection at Beacon Bath and Bubble. We keep a collection of Beacon's artifacts in the back so we can share Beacon's history with the people who come into our store. And what she is winding up on the Victor back there is a record titled In Matawan. And it is...
Anybody else shocked over that?
And it is a comical vaudeville song written by Harry Von Tilzer and sung by Arthur Fields. And it is about a gentleman who meets of inmates at Matawan.
Oh my God, wait a minute. You got to bring the microphone back, Emily. Take this right back with you. I know Peter probably can't move the camera, but take it back.
Well, that's okay. As long as the camera can hear it, it'll be okay. And this is very loud. We didn't bring a sock to put in the horn. If you've ever heard the phrase put a sock in it, that's what it means. So the song is a comic vaudeville song about a man who meets inmates from Matawan State Asylum for the Criminally Insane, which was much more nationally well known than the village of Matawan was at the time. And do we have a date on the record? It's spinning. It was prior to 1913, which is when the village of Matawan became part of the city of Beacon. So without further ado.
There is at least one place on earth where men can live in peace, where marriages are not not allowed in business bloody feet. They have no use for money there, and fashions never change. No matter what they say or do, nobody thinks it's strange. In Mattawan, they say that everybody's off, but everybody's on. Nobody's home except the loons, and they're completely gone. They saved a home for Judge Jerome up there in Mattawan. I'd often heard of Mattawan, and one day I went there. My board broke down before the door. A screw was loose somewhere. A bug who saw me trying to mend that car yelled out in glee, "Why, you shouldn't be outside, old pal. Come on in here with me." In Mattawan, they say that everybody's off, but everybody's on. The loon said, "If you think you'll fix that for your nut is gone. And when a screw is loose, then you belong in Mattawan." The man who showed me round the place said he was not insane. His relatives had put him there so all his coin they'd gain. When I said I'd inform his friends, he told me not to fret. He kicked me in the nose and said, "That's so you'll not forget." In Mattawan, they say that everybody's off, but everybody's on. One loon who shot a man and got a life term there was gone. Ain't safe to let a gun and get a home in Mattawan. I asked the loon what time it was. He said, "The clock is queer. But if the clock was right up off, it wouldn't be up here." He said, "If you've a piece of toast, give it to me, I beg. I cannot sleep except on toast, for I'm a scrambled egg." In Mattawan, they say that everybody's off, but everybody's on. A short hunchback whose name was Jack, they called him Demijohn, because he drank just like a tank in dear old Mattawan. I met a fancy diver there and listened to his talk. He said he started in to dive from London to New York. I asked him, did he make it? Then he grinned and shouted, "Bah! I dived right past New York and came up in old Omaha." In Mattawan, they say that everybody's off, but everybody's on. They claim that nuts come from Brazil, but I know where they've gone. They've got more kinds of nuts than Heinz up there in Mattawan.
So that's in Mattawan. So thank you guys for sharing that song with us. And I will try to get the transcribed lyrics to Denise so that way we can include it.
Oh, isn't that astounding? Oh my God, where did you get that record?
My mother is a very prolific eBay hunter, so.
That is amazing.
Came up, and I believe it was like a buy it now, and I was like,
Oh!
and then we were anticipating it coming. Remember, we didn't really know if it was our Mattawan,
Because there are others, like in New Jersey. Yeah. Wow.
When we got it, Emily and I, we ran down to the store and we spun it. We're like, oh my God, it's about.
Oh my God, isn't that amazing? You're going to always remember this, that you were here when we played that, and even to hear the Victrola. Thank you. What's the approximate year on that? Do you know?
1910.
1910. Wow. Wow. So a big round of applause for these ladies. Okay, who's next? Who's next with our numbering system? Okay. Patrick Mescal, one of our trustees, and the head of our research committee. We receive research inquiries from all around the world on a weekly basis, and Patrick and his team of volunteers try our best to respond to them. So a round of applause for Patrick even before he starts.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I was very happy this evening that the announcement was made that the organization will be honoring the Beacon Volunteer Ambulance Corps. BVAC started about 66 years ago, and one of the gentlemen who was one of the chairpersons, one of the founders, was a gentleman some of you will know by the name of Vinnie Arquilla. Does anybody know Vinnie Arquilla? Raise your hand. Yes, I figured that. Vinnie was a life member, and we lost him back in 2006. And his wife, Dee Arquilla, who still lives here in Beacon with a family, she came to me one day and she said, I found this in the garage, and she said, "I'd like you to have it in memory of Vinnie." I'm now passing it over to the Beacon Historical Society. And what it is, it's a nameplate of the Beacon Volunteer Ambulance Corps. This would have been in the window of one of the Cadillacs that we used to drive back in the 1970s. And the other thing I'd like to mention here tonight is that the Elks Club was one of the first benefactors. The Beacon Engine was the original founders of the organization by a Beacon Police Department officer by the name of Detweiler, Walt Detweiler. And it was because his son's life was saved by, they didn't call them volunteer ambulance corps, they used to call them first aid squads back down in New Jersey. And it was through his efforts with the Beacon Engine Fire Company that they helped to sponsor the original Beacon Volunteer Ambulance Corps. And they actually were the ones that bought the building. There was a gas station across the street, and that's where we had our first. When I came up here to live in Beacon back in 1972, 73, in 1974, Vinnie Arquilla was there when I first joined the organization. And people such as Dale Plummer, who are still there and very active in the organization, he was my first instructor back in 1974. So this is for the memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, so much for what you do for us. We're so grateful. All right, I'm going to pivot now and just talk on. We could talk all night and do an entire program on the history of outstanding veterans from the city of Beacon and its antecedent communities. I think you all know that. But we brought just two examples of uniforms that are in our collection to represent all of those men and women. So, Diane, if you want to, there's one on each side. So you can take one. First, we'll start with Robert Piotrowski. He was a Navy veteran who served in the Pacific. He returned to Beacon and worked in Nabisco. He passed away in 1999. He'd been born here in 1920. He was one of, anybody want to guess how many men and women from Beacon served in World War II? Rough ballpark, anybody? 1,700. Right? Now, for me, his biggest claim to fame, in addition to his military service, you can walk it around, Diane, isn't he handsome, is that he was Wanda Schrammick's brother. Everybody, you had to know Wanda. You're really not from Beacon unless you knew Wanda. So this is Wanda's brother. Both Wanda and his wife, Bob's wife, Marion, worked at Aero Leather during the war, making Air Force jackets that we know are so familiar on the home front. We'd like to know more about his service record. Bob Pine is helping me research him a little bit, and if that kind of research appeals to you, please let us know, because you can do a lot of it at home on your computer. And then our second uniform that we want to show is actually something that we just received, and I'm not, obviously it was his family members, right? Is that right, Diane Lapis, who just brought this to us. We don't know much about it. Vincent Scalaro, anybody know the name? Scalaro, Susie, 19, I don't have my glasses on either. That's not a good recipe here. Vinnie Scalaro, right. So he served in Korea. We don't have as much information about Korea as we would like. And of course, Beacon has an amazing connection to Korea. Why? Because of the National World War II Monument in Washington, D.C. was cast right here, the Korean War Memorial cast italics. So we're so delighted to have it. He was a technical sergeant in Korea. He's buried in St. Joachim Cemetery. He was born in 1933 and he died in 2001. And this is his uniform. So again, if you have these kind of items, your children or grandchildren are not interested in them, we will treasure them and we will store them in archival conditions and we will make them available to researchers in the future. All right, while you're over there, Diane Murphy on your side, let's hold up our Alice Judson painting. Alice Judson was a graduate of Madiwan High School. She's born 1876. She becomes an American painter who specializes in landscapes of Dutchess County and seascapes of Gloucester, Massachusetts. We have a number of her paintings in our collection. We now have about 12 Alice Judson paintings. They're highly collectible. She flourishes in the 1920s and 30s. She's an instructor at the Pittsburgh School of Art. She had her own art studio here. Anybody want to guess? If you've been paying attention to your riveting Beacon newsletters, you would know the answers to these questions, people. And my friends from Two Way Brewing should know the answers to these questions. Oh, you must have been imbibing on the beer. She had her studio above what I call Minuteman Construction on Tyranda Avenue, upstairs there. She also had a studio in New York City on West 37th Street. She dies in 1948 and is buried in St. Luke's Episcopal Church Cemetery here in Beacon. So this is a lovely example of her work. I did want to tell you that we recently acquired through eBay, again, eBay, a beautiful painting that she did of Water Street. Right around the corner of us here. We had it restored over in Massachusetts, and it's lovely. It's on display in our headquarters, so please come and visit it, and one of our volunteers will show it to you on the second floor in the library. And I share that to say, when you provide us a financial donation, or when you support the Beacons of History, you give us the funds so that we can do that. Send out a piece of artwork which had been faded and needed work and rematted properly and reframed. Send it to Massachusetts, where they put it together in the correct archival materials and send it back to us. So thank you for your financial support. Okay, who's got the next number in tonight's hit parade? What were we up to? Oh, I think I lost the 8, cryptically enough. Number 9, Paul Grumkowski. Paul is a legend here in Beacon. Everybody knows Paul, don't you not? He claims to have escaped to Fishkill, but he'll always be a Beacon person. He has forgotten more about Beacon than I will ever know. He is a walking encyclopedia of Beacon and its people. And one of my favorite things that he will tell me over and over is the nicknames for all the people that are in Beacon. Because if you live in Beacon, you had to have a nickname. Who's with me on that, right? So, okay, turning it over to Paul Grumkowski. I can hold the mic, or you can hold it yourself. You're kind of a showman, so
I'll let you hold.
Okay.
My name's Paul Grumkowski. I was been in Beacon. I grew up in Beacon. I was born in Cold Spring, Highland Hospital. I lived 1 year down south, but typically Beacon and Fishkill area all my life. I had something planned tonight, but it didn't go that way, so I picked another theme, and I found this kind of a pin-up with a thermometer in it, and it's Brunetto cheese, if everybody remembers Brunetto cheese. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, before it was Brunetto cheese, was it Emmeline?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and here's a little Emmeline box, and it says Beacon, New York right on it. Ice cream, kind of hard to find. And then I remember these little jars in my aunt's house and a lot of other people's houses, and I saw one day, I think it was at a flea market. I said, I remember those, and I turned it around and I looked, and it said Duchess Cheese, New York.
Wow.
And I believe that's also from the same place.
Yeah.
So that's my little Brunetto cheese.
Very cheesy. Well done.
What I wanted to talk about is a bunch of paperwork that I can't remember where I found it. It's either a dumpster, an estate sale, a flea market. But anyway, I put it together in a book. It was a bunch of old papers. And the earliest date is 1892. And there's a guy, his name was Władysław Pratolowski.
Yes. He helped immigrants here to welcome them to Beacon, or to Fishkill Landing.
And that's what this is all about.
If you read my books, you would know that.
I've read your books, but I'm reading books every night, so I can't remember. But it's like Pennsylvania Railroad, banks, and this guy was into a little bit of everything. And it's got exchange rates of different currencies, of Russian currency and Italian currency. And then he's got letters going back and forth with other agents that take people to the Southwest or Pennsylvania or Chicago. And he also sold real estate. And in one of these things here, he's getting a commission for selling like razors. A guy's giving him $1 commission on it. But one of the things I wanted to say, and there's a whole bunch of letters in here that need to be transcribed. It's all in script, and
it's a lost art. We don't teach kids to write or read script anymore.
But there's information in here that you guys need. So
yeah. He was an immigrant's friend. He helped people to come here and settle here and welcome them when they got here. And obviously it was a business for him as well.
But I want to just read one short paragraph letter it's like old things are new and new things are old. But this is from the Inman line. It's out of New York City. It's a boat line. It's to Mr. Pratolowski, Fishkill on the Hudson. Dear Sir, in reply to your letter on the 4th, we do not see that we can assist you in a matter you referred to. The 5 children are all under 21 years of age, and they cannot possibly support themselves, and we suppose they have no money with them, so there's no use in bringing them out, as they would be returned by the same steamer by the Superintendent of Immigration. We shall be glad to oblige you, their uncles and aunts, but there is no use encouraging you to bring the passengers out, and we shall be compelled to send them back free on the same steamer. And he goes on to say that he needs to talk to the superintendent, J.B. Weber of Ellis Island, New York, to get like a waiver to do this, but they're saying
What's the date on this?
1892. But
Wow, you did not disappoint us. Yes, that's great. Let's see if we can find a volunteer who would. There's one in the back who loves to transcribe things. Look at her; she's trying to avert my gaze. But that's amazing, Paul. Thank you. And Paul told me today he's going to join the Beacon Historical Society. That deserves a round of applause, right? I got a flyer for you.
Build on Sharon's green stamps, Triple S blue stamps, Grand Union, Grandway. When I was 11 years old, I told all my aunts and uncles and parents, for my birthday or Christmas, I want blue stamps. And I saved up 17 and a half books of blue stamps, and I bought a Remington 22.
Wow. Great story. Paul, thank you so much. We're going to put you right to work. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you came. Thank you. We have some other folks. So if he was 9, do we have a 10 here tonight? Okay, why don't you come up from the back, the very back. And Paul, remind me what street you grew up on. Not Ralph. Ralph? It was Ralph. Okay. You had the idyllic childhood here with many stories of your father, Stan. So here we go. Okay.
I'm Dawn Walsh, and I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't know what was going to happen, and I just grabbed this off the mantle. I have several things like this, and it's from 1935, and that is from the Beacon Press. That's a big. I thought it was kind of big, as far as if a newspaper would go, and I didn't know it till I took this off and read the date. So it's all stores in Beacon. And you could get a dress at Bernstein's for $2.88. So it's everything, for everybody. You can buy Moore Brothers had clocks for $2.29, and it's just ads of all the stores of Beacon.
Fascinating.
So
Great. So maybe you could put it on a back table, and anybody wants to read it. Tell us again the year on it.
1935.
And are you at any connection to Walsh, the store? Tell us that connection.
I am the wife of Jay Walsh, who passed away 10 years ago. And his father had the store before him, and it's on here. They made ice cream, apparently, for 40 cents a gallon. I never had it, but they made it. I went to the fountain, but that was it.
And did you grow up here in Beacon? Give me your life story.
I was born in Beacon, but wasn't born in the hospital. I was born on Jackson Street. The doctors used to come to your house then, and you had a midwife. And that's what I did. And I've been in Beacon. Now I live in Glenham. And that was it. Nothing exciting.
That's exciting. Are you kidding? So wonderful. Thank you. I'm so glad you brought that, Dawn. Thank you very, very much. And for the record, I don't want to speak on behalf of the whole society, but I would say that we really consider ourselves the Beacon City School District's Historical Society, right? We take things from Dutchess Junction and from Glenham and Chelsea and other things are in our collection. So you're one of ours, whether you want to be or not, if you live in Glenham. Okay, I'm going to go next to something that you all are well familiar with, and that is our famous Eighth Wonder of the World. Diane, you want to come grab this, Diane Murphy? Eighth Wonder of the World, the Mount Beacon Incline Railway. I don't have to tell you much about it, but this is a small shadow box that our volunteers have put together. I think Ann Foreman, did you work on this one? You did the other one. Okay, so it's a little shadow box. It has some items on it. I'm just going to give you a tiny history about the incline. October of 1901. They start construction in October. What were they thinking, really? Now, imagine with the winter coming on. 73 men come down from Mohawk, New York, the Mohawk Construction Company. The work was incredibly arduous. They had to use pack mules to get all the materials to the top of the mountain. They could carry, the pack mules, 1901, 24 bricks in one load. Now, how long do you think it took them to get all those bricks up there? Yet the tracks are in place by late March of 1902. So, they knew how to build things back then. The total cost to build it was $165,000. It becomes the most popular day trip vacation in the entire Hudson Valley, courtesy of that famous 2,000-foot long incline railway, the steepest in the world. At the time, the steepest in the world. About 3 million people will take the railway to the top during its course of 75 years of seasonal operation. I know, it had certainly its ups and downs. It opened on Memorial Day of 1902. It was very sunny, very hot that day. Yet they sold about 1,400 fares at 25 cents each. It was a heart-throbbing ride. How many of you had the opportunity to go up the mountain? Raise it higher. Raise it high. Now shake it and say, I did it. Yay! You did it. A heart-throbbing ride, because what happened halfway up? You changed on the track. It was a single track, right? Less expensive to build, less expensive to maintain. But there was the place where the two cars had to pass on the mountain. And that, of course, made it very scary. On top of the mountain, there was plenty to do. There was the beautiful hotel that ultimately burns in 1927. There were 2 incarnations of the casino. The second one is what you remember. People think it was a gambling casino. A casino is just a place to go and congregate, a restaurant. If you've ever been to Canfield Casino in the city of Saratoga Springs, it's the same thing. That's a word they would have used for a plaza or a restaurant or something at the time. Burro rides, of course, photographs, and I like to think of it as the world-famous Mount Beacon Monument that had been erected there in 1900. So hope you enjoyed that. And again, at the end of the night, please come up and look at some of these things. I'll do another quick one, Diane. Let's do the Hammond Girls photo albums. We want to thank David Turner, who's one of our members, a Beacon resident who's an avid collector and a historian in his own right on so many topics. He donated these to us, and I believe he got them from eBay. But the 2 Dianes, they can each take one. These are photo albums that belong to Grace and Elsie Hammond. They were sisters and the children of Beacon's Ben Hammond. Some of you may recognize Hammond's Field, named for him. He was the head of the Board of Education for 30 years. But he made his money through his business, which was Hammond's Paint and Slug Shop, or Insecticide Works, that was down on the waterfront. I mentioned he was on the school board for 30 years. Well, he was a big believer in particular for higher education for women, and he sent all 3 of his girls to Mount Holyoke in Massachusetts. Young Elsie, one of the girls, inherited her father's love of gardening, and soon after graduation, she took a job at the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, and she actually rose to assistant curator there. So even though he's an insecticide person, he's actually trying to help people grow things in their garden, right, by keeping out the pests. What's old is new again. Aren't we all still doing that? Elsie lived to be 99 years old. Her older sister, Grace, died when she was much younger, back in 1928, but she got a degree from the University of Pennsylvania and became Beacon's first female dentist. So how wonderful that Dave was able to provide us with these scrapbooks that show us, a lot of it is actually up at Mount Holyoke where they went to school, but some, there are a few local scenes and of the girls, and it just shows you that there were women from Beacon in particular who had this really, frankly, nice education and nice quality of life, and what a wonderful place this was to live. Okay, what's our next number? Who's paying attention? Here she comes. Liz Foster, I'm going to let you, first of all, you were born in Beacon. Okay. In the hospital, in Highland Hospital? In the new Highland Hospital. Okay, that's quite an accomplishment. So that's beyond 63. So see how young she is? So, all right, take it away.
So we were just talking about the casino, and I have a picture here that I think I'll leave these in the back because these are my dad's pictures, and he died 32 years ago, and I was young and stupid and didn't ask him anything, and then got all these pictures, and some of them had things written on them, but some don't. So maybe some of you can identify some people. Yeah. Now, so
this is very nice. It's of the Mount of the casino, but it's a scene in snow. We don't have much of that.
Yeah, and I think it might be Prospect Street. Yeah. And then it says the first pillar on the Beacon Bridge in 1960. And that's the wing of a plane there. So yeah. Yes. Yeah. And and these are the ones I have no information about, but it says the farm at Mattyone, Michael Kirby, caretaker. And Michael Kirby would have been my grandmother's cousin. And I don't know what this is shocking because I am a volunteer and I have no idea what the.
We're going to find them in the directories, right, and see if we can find out where they live, okay, by the surname, which we'll talk a little bit about later.
Yeah. And then I have here, this might be of interest to some people, St. John the Evangelist, Beacon, New York, 1936 graduation. So this is the front steps of St. John's Church in 1936. And that would be, my dad was in that one. And I'm sorry, I don't know anybody else who would have been in there, but maybe you'll see a familiar face if you look. And then this is my uncle, which would have been 1938. So I'm going to leave this, a lot of family pictures, so it's people I know that you maybe don't, but I'll leave this in the back and maybe you'll find a, aunt or uncle or mother or father in there.
Okay, you know that I do the Beacon Historical Society newsletter. You know I do the sideshows.
Yeah.
And just now you're telling me you have this scrapbook that I could have been using? Yes.
Well, absolutely. Yes. These are all yours.
A round of applause for Liz. Great job. Thank you. That was wonderful. She said, I don't know if I should bring it in. I'm so glad you did. That is wonderful. You don't have any idea what the farm was?
I don't.
Okay, let's see if we can find it in a directory or map or something by the surname. So, it could be Madiwan. Depends what year it is. Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to do another one quick, and then we'll go on to somebody else. Now, we talked earlier about the ration booklet. Bob Haight was nice enough to bring in a ration booklet. Now we're going to talk about a Victory Garden manual, and that's way far over here, Diane Murphy or Diane Lapis, whoever wants to take this one. We just acquired this in our collection. I don't know that everybody appreciates what a Victory Garden was. Vegetable gardens planted in both World Wars, not just World War II, but it was in order to ensure an adequate food supply for the civilians because, of course, we had to prioritize food for the troops. So this is the 1940s edition, is it not, Diane? I'm surprised to see colored photography in it. Does it have a date? Up here. 41?
Oh, no, 44.
1944. So right at near the close of the war. And planning your garden, what to plant in your garden. I'll let Diane pass it around. Government agencies, private foundations, businesses, schools, seed companies, average Americans all worked together on the home front during World War II to help people grow these gardens in their backyard. Millions of Victory Gardens in all shapes and sizes actually produced abundant food for all the folks at home. The gardens are mostly gone, but posters, seed packets, catalogs, booklets, films, newspaper articles, diaries, and people's memories of them remain. So did anybody remember their house having a Victory Garden in the backyard during World War II? Bob Haight? Pat Mistel? Always had a garden. Where's George Atkinson? George, did you have a Victory Garden? No. Really? No? Okay. Well, they were so popular. It's estimated, if you can believe this, that an estimated 60% of produce consumed by American families were grown in Victory Gardens during World War II. 60% of their food they were growing in their backyards. Isn't that astounding? And I'm really impressed to see that this was from 1944 with color photos in it. They're kind of rare, especially during the war.
And this we found in our mailbox. This was from an anonymous.
Did you hear?
Say it again. This we found in our mailbox over on 61 Leonard Street. An anonymous donor gave us this. So whoever gave it to us, thank you very much.
Yes.
I love it because I'm a gardener. Yeah,
yes, excellent. Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, our next number. Who's the lucky number? Here she comes, Jean Stanowich. She's got a box of stuff she's going to share with us. Jean, too, has been a longtime supporter of the Historical Society, and we're fortunate to have her. So take it away. I'm going to hold the mic for you, but I also need you to look over in the camera so everybody can see how beautiful you are.
The Beacon Savings Bank gave these away when I was a little kid, and this was mine when I have no idea. It was, under 5, 6, something like that.
So it's got a little coin slot in the front.
And it's probably usable yet, if you want to save some money. But I have a real question. Now, this one here, I've had on my son's dresser for years. I remember him getting it at the bank. They were giving him out, and I don't have any paper on it, nothing. He remembers it from the bank. I only went to the Beacon Savings Bank. So I have no idea. And it is a bank. In fact, it's kind of falling apart.
Oh, I see the back. There's a coin slot. Sure there is. Yeah.
And then it opens up on the bottom. but it may have had some information saying that it was from there, and I was hoping somebody else may recognize it. No? Nobody? No?
Well, we're going to put this on YouTube, and if anybody's watching, I hope they'll email us, right? That's very intriguing.
I've always wondered about, if anybody else has any, and it's been sitting, he's 51 now, so he was probably maybe 10.
Wow.
Something like that. Right, Andy?
She's got a couple more things in her famous box.
Yeah, this is, you were talking about Madiwan. My father worked up there for many years. He was one of the guards or whatever you want to call it. This is on the badge. It was on his hat. And I used to have a picture, and I don't have it anymore with us. 2 shoehorns. One from Rosenblum's and one from Schumann's Army and Navy. And they've been around a long time. And let's see. This was Richie's second lieutenant badge from Tompkins Hose. And then this one is from the firehouse, the 100th, I think it says, the 100th anniversary of Tompkins Hose.
So what's the year on that? Is that a year?
1986.
Wow, yeah. Rich was a wonderful volunteer there and a great volunteer in the city of Beacon.
Now I have another question. Bonnie Sibilinski gave me this the other day. She found it in her attic, and we were wondering if anybody knows anything about Sackett Schofield Incorporated, Beacon, New York.
It's an assignment for us. What a challenge.
She says you can have it.
Oh, how wonderful. Great. We'll look it up. It looks like they manufactured something. It's got 159 on it, like an employee number or something. Beacon, New York. I don't have my glass on. Is that Shackett? Shackett, Schofield Inc. So it's a business. You stumped us. You must get some kind of prize for that.
I had no idea. She was up in her attic and found it.
That would be great. If we could have it, that'd be great. We'll look it up. Coming to a newsletter near you. We can find out what it was.
Leave it over here.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. And let's see. Just a whole bunch of Beacon High School stuff.
You're very organized. Where was all your stuff? In the Hates attic?
An old jewelry box. Little thing we used to wear. This is not Beacon High School, but this is an old Beacon Soccer League patch. And this is my... Whoops. I'll get it later.
She's very organized, isn't she?
I don't know if I'd find them. These are in little... I have a little... box, wall thing, shadow box, and they're all up in there. This is my high school ring, which wouldn't fit me now. Oh, yeah, it does.
What year is that, Jean?
65. Yeah. A little bulldog.
I'll get all this.
No, it's good. You have your ring? I have Richie's too.
It's beautiful blue stone in it.
And this is a little, like a little bracelet like somebody else was talking about from Beacon High School.
Nice.
It's there anyway. And the last thing is, I've had this for a long time. It's one of those, the Cat's Meow, and it's of the, Madame Brett's, yeah.
Everybody knows. What's our claim to fame in Beacon? What about it? Bingo. Oldest building in Dutchess County, about 1709. Jean Stanowich, A+. Thank you for bringing all these great things in. Great job. A round of applause for Jean. Thank you. That was wonderful. Yes, for sure. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to one that's a little bit more fun. If one of the Dianes wants to come over to this table. You may not have known him as Richard Frederick, as his first and middle names. You might perhaps know him as Digger. Digger Phelps was born here in 1941. He's got another claim to fame in 1941. What did he do in 1941? He was born on the 4th of July, if you can believe it. We know him as a former college basketball coach, most notably of Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish from 71 to 91. And, of course, if you're from Beacon, you know his family ran the Hignell Phelps Funeral Home. He worked for the business on weekends and during the summer. His first head coaching job came. Anybody want a trivia answer that? Fordham. Who said that? Well done. Well done, Peter Foreman in the back. Fordham University in the Bronx in May of 71. At the age of just 29, R. Digger Phelps was named head coach at the University of Notre Dame. During his 20 seasons, Notre Dame teams went 14 seasons of 20 wins or more. And then for 20 years after his career of coaching, from 1993 to 2014, he was an analyst on ESPN. He now lives in South Bend, Indiana. Of course, there's lots of folks who still remember him, and his parents, and both of his parents, right? And I don't know the story behind this poster. I'm glad we acquired it, but he's famous, right? There you go. All right, now another topic that you're all pretty much familiar with. Diane, if you don't mind, while you're there, we're going to take the other shadow box from over here, prepared by Ann Foreman in the back, one of our trustees, and that is of the Newburgh Beacon Ferry, or as we know it's properly called, the Beacon Newburgh Ferry. How many of you rode the ferry? Wow, that's a great showing. Now, many of you, you're all going to ride it in August, right? But ours was one of the longest running ferries in American history for 220 years. Our shadow box is filled with all sorts of small memorabilia, tokens and schedules and photographs and things. It's now running, of course, again for commuters, but it's not really the same, is it, as that famous, so then there's that bridge thing up there. Much has been written about the ferry, and you can read more about it in our books. But those of you who remember will also remember that as we have it in this halcyon memory bank, that we think everything was grand and wonderful, but there were a lot of problems too, weren't there? It was often late. It was beleaguered by weather. And the March of Progress essentially means that by 63, the bridge is going to be built. One of my favorite humorous stories about the ferry is that there was this national event going on when Mighty Mo, the USS Missouri, had been stuck in the mud in Chesapeake Bay, and it was all over national headlines. They couldn't get this USS ship out of the mud in Chesapeake Bay. Well, at about the same time, of course, what got stuck? The ferry boat Orange. And so it became this really kind of local fun thing because it was happening at the same time. T-shirts were made up calling our ferry Little Mo, and we have one of the ferry, we have news clippings, and we have one of the T-shirts from it. So kind of a neat story, but illustrative of the fact that it was difficult to operate and not dependable. So by the early 1960s, sadly, it was time to go. On November the 3rd of 63, shortly after 5 o'clock, the Duchess and the Orange, now owned by the Bridge Authority and painted what color by the time the Bridge Authority... Say it louder, Paul Gromkowski, our newest member, green. They met mid-river. They signaled a final salute to each other, and they retired the Newburgh Beacon Ferry after 220 years of history. So, yes, right. So, the ice was a complication. People that went to school, Peter Foreman, you didn't take the ferry to St. Patrick's, did you? Oh, didn't Jimmy did. Did you take the ferry across to go to St. Patrick's? Every day. So you would walk from your home down to the ferry, you would board the ferry, and then when you got off, you'd walk up the hill to St. Pat's to go to school. Stand up and get a round of applause just for that. My God. And we didn't know any better, right? That's the way life was. That's what you did. So I always think of it as, oh my God, it must have been so wonderful. And I said to the former chairman of the board at Central Hudson one time, oh, I'm so sorry, the ferry is gone. He goes, are you kidding? You waited down there, you waited down there, you waited down there. It wasn't on time. It would be delayed by weather. It'd be stuck in fog, stuck in the ice. He said the best thing they did was build that bridge. So all perspective, right? Okay, who's got my next number? Okay. And I'm going to have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you here in Beacon first.
I'm Barbara Conley Gazda. Okay. I spent the first 25 years of my life in Beacon.
And she's very supportive on Facebook. We love her on Facebook. She's very supportive and follows everything and is a wealth of knowledge.
So I've had this in my attic for like 50 years and nobody has been interested in seeing it. But show and tell at the Beacon Historical Society.
This is its big moment.
This is it.
Get your cameras ready, everybody.
This has spent... I wore this endlessly in 1965 at Beacon High. We all did. Everybody had one. We wore them all over town. It was just the rage. So it's been tucked away for a very long time, and it deserves to be shown.
Wow. Just come up and take a picture of us. Wait, hold that up. My husband's going to take a picture. Everybody knows my long-suffering husband has to take my pictures.
That's great.
Wow. Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you. I'm so glad you came tonight.
I'm so glad you had this opportunity for me to show.
Yes. Wonderful. And I'm impressed that anybody that can find a garment from 1965 is in my pantheon of Wonder Women.
It isn't in shreds, so.
Yes, good. Okay, who's got the next number? What were you, Barbara? What number? 13. Okay, we got a 14. Okay, come on, Joanne. Jo Marie. Sorry, I know you're Jo Marie like my sister-in-law. The only other Jo Maries I know, right? So.
I should have brought my jacket. I have a jacket too. Anyway, I'll be very brief. Denise said, look in your attic. I looked in my attic. I have 2 big pieces of furniture. I have them on my phone, so I don't know if you can see it. One is a record player and radio chest, and the other one is a cedar chest, I think mahogany. And I have a feeling maybe they were made or at least purchased from Ruza here in Beacon. And the cedar chest is locked, and I can't get into it.
Wow. Paul Gromkowski.
Yeah. Any suggestions how I can get it open?
Yes, he'll come.
Okay. Well, no. I'd like to, but anyway, thank you.
Now, was that your hope chest or somebody's hope chest? Whom of us here had hope chests, right? I'm still hoping.
Me too. It's my mother's.
It's her mother's hope chest. So we need to find out what's in there. Yeah, Jo Marie, thank you so much. That's great. So we don't have too many left, right? I've just got a few that I wanted to cover with you. This one is an odd one. I'm going to save that for last. One of our other famous residents here in Beacon was a man named Jimmy Grippo. Okay, hopefully that means that's familiar to some of you. You may know him because he hypnotized Emilio Bettina into winning the light heavyweight championship. But he was actually internationally renowned as both a hypnotist and a professional magician. He was elected into the Society of the American Magicians Hall of Fame, but also the International Society of Hypnosis Hall of Fame, and became the official host of the city of Las Vegas in the 1970s. So what they're passing around now is actually his workbook, his program of how you hypnotize people. And we're so lucky to have these copies here. There's some original notes and things in the side of it. So he was the official host of the city of Las Vegas and of Caesar's Palace from the late 1960s until his death in 1992. Did anybody know him or any of their family? Jimmy Grippo? John did. John. His brother, Jan, went on to produce and direct more than 50 Bowery Boy films. Jan was also co-founder of the Magic Castle in Hollywood, where famous magicians from all over the world will have performed. So just a really neat thing. And who would like to volunteer to read the materials and come back and hypnotize someone next month? Think on it. Let me know if you're interested. To have a world-class hypnotist and his program in our collection is really quite interesting, I think. All right. Who's next on our number? Because I just have 2 left tonight. Do we have anybody else? Here we go. Come on up and tell me. You brought a nice poster today. And your shirt says trampled by turtles. There must be a story with that, but we'll save that for another night.
So I'm New Beacon. I have the youngest item here.
And your name is?
I'm Kathleen Mazza. So the very first time I was in Beacon was on May 18th, 2013. And I was on a blind date. And we met at Dia and had a wonderful time and walked up and down Main Street. And we could hear the crowd at Memorial Park celebrating the 100th birthday of Beacon.
Oh, my God, come on.
The big party that you... he and I had never been in Beacon before, and we felt a warm hug that day from all the cheering and the good mood that was in Beacon that day. And we never made it to the park. We could hear the crowd, but we didn't know our way around, and Google wasn't such a thing with maps at the time, so we just heard it. And all the vendors at the stores and the streets were empty, were telling us where to go, but we didn't know our way around, so we didn't get there.
Wow. And the love story had a happy ending?
So in 2015, our real estate agent, who was selling us a house to live in Beacon together, suggested we go to Max's for lunch that day, and we did. So we were regulars at Max's for a while, and one day we're sitting there eating our onion rings at Max's, and what is on the wall but this poster And we were goggling over it and saying, oh, that would be so cool to have. It was our first date, May 18th, 2013. And the one of the brothers at Max's, I don't recall his name, said, you want that? I can't get it off the wall for you, but I know the guy who made it, and he has another one in his house, and he would give it to you if you come by tonight. He's going to come tonight. I'll tell him to bring it. And he did, and he handed it off to us. So this is the poster from our very first date and Beacon's 100th birthday. And I'd love to hear about any of the planning or anything that anybody remembers from that day.
Yeah, the Historical Society was actively engaged in the 100th anniversary, but that is so cool. And Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, that was pretty cool stuff at the time. Well done. Do you mind walking it around? I'm going to turn you into Vanna White. You can show everybody your really cool poster.
So memories from the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have any other numbers left in the audience tonight? Okay, is there a 15? Okay, 16, Diane Lapis.
Yep. So, yes, thank you. So I've been organizing the newspaper collection at the Historical Society, and I always wondered what is the oldest newspaper we have. So this is our oldest, supposedly, from 1800. Wow. I researched it, and it's a fraud. So this was made as it was a popular newspaper about Washington's death in 1799, and it was reprinted over and over the century, like a century and a half, as a souvenir. So I'm not sure what year this one is. It could be from 1840. It could be from 1876. It's still old, but it is not from 1800. So it is our only fraud, or that I believe, or forgery that is in our collection. They were actually sold as souvenirs, so they weren't really reproductions. But our oldest newspaper is from 1841, the Long Island Farmer. So anyway, I just thought it was fun because it was
fun. Another great example of the things that we have in our collection. We wish our collection of newspapers was complete. There are holes in it, but great resource for all the folks who research things here. Okay, you were 15. You were 16. Do we have a 17? The Foremans in the back. Come on up. Most of you know Peter is a very shy, laid-back, quiet fellow, but we are going to pull him out of his shell tonight with his beautiful wife, Anne, as they share something with us.
Well, one thing Paul forgot to mention, his dad's bar on Main Street. Come on.
Yeah, right. Central House, but we also had the New Haven House, which was the worst bar. The railroad station. Haven Railroad, New York Central Railroad.
And where was the Central House?
Yeah.
Where was the Central House?
Oh, Amacor?
Amacor. All right. So, to give you a little context, we are living in the family homestead. Foreman's first bought our house in 1926, Andrew Foreman and his wife Celia. And we are the fourth generation to own it. Becky was our fifth when Becky and Maureen lived with us. They live there. And our granddaughter Lucy has been hanging around there lately. So we got 6 generations now at. So when I was growing up, this was in the dining room, and it is a. Go ahead, Ann. This would let you know that dinner is being served. And we then relocated it to the kitchen, but it's been in our house as long as I can remember.
Very cool. Very cool.
I think his grandmother would call someone a serving girl. That would be me now.
Right.
We used to call our kids down for dinner because rather than yelling into the house, this
was a lot nicer. Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. Wow. Beautiful. Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. Any other items? I've just got 2 more that I want to talk a little bit about. One is kind of serious. I'm going to save it for the end because it's a little out of the ordinary and very unique. But we didn't want to miss the opportunity to bring with us one city director. This particular one is from 1970. 1963. So I don't want to presume that everybody knows what city directories were. Our collection is from the 1890s till the 1960s. And what's beautiful for them from a research perspective is that you can use them to research genealogies, biography, general Beacon history. They first appear in the United States in the 1780s, and they record the names, the residences, the business addresses, not only of the local residents, but of churches and of businesses, of schools, the police stations, government officials, and all of the individuals associated with those institutions. Some of these directories will actually include whether or not the woman is a widow or whether or not the person is of color. So they provide an enormous wealth of information to us when we're researching, right? Patrick does all of our research. Our city directories are an unbelievable tool, and our collection is from the 1890s up until the 1960s, essentially. So, anybody have family that was living here in 1963? Well, you're going to stand up loud and proud. Let's see if you can stand up. Come on, let's see if you can find him here in this directory. No, Denny's going to see if he can find his Myers line here, 1963. Go to the back. They're in alphabetical order back here. We'll find out where your family lived and if they're listed as wild and crazy. He's in the P's. He's building suspense. Says Bat Florist on the end. There are all kind of ads in these. And, if you're researching a house history with folks who've been ordering our plaques, here we go. He's found it.
Lucy Meyer, 2 Spring Street.
You related to her?
That's my mother.
Oh, how great is that?
Yeah, and George Myers, who would be my uncle, and he lived up off of Wesley Avenue.
Wow. Does it tell us anything else about them or just their names?
What do you want to know?
I don't know. Okay. I just didn't know. Sometimes they'll tell you some information about where they work or their business concern or their beyond just their address.
Are there little symbols next to it then?
No.
Anybody else have a family member here in 1963? Jim's. Oh, it's got his. See, now the truth comes out. Your brother.
In U.S. Navy, so he was in the Navy in 63. Yeah. So, yeah.
Jim Seedor is going to look up his next. Jim, tell us about your story here in Beacon.
Well, my story is that my father was killed in the Second World War.
Everyone hear that? His father was killed in the Second World War?
And my mother remarried a guy from Beacon.
She got sentenced and she came back.
I moved into Beacon 1949. And my stepfather's name was Steve Seaman. They lived across the street from the Brunetto cheese factory. And that's where they all lived, pretty much. So I'm going to look up Seaman.
Seaman and Seedor. So your father died in World War II, in combat.
Yes.
And you met this lovely woman here in Beacon?
When my best friend, Joe Vallo, got married to her sister.
Seems like yesterday, right? How many years ago was it?
Well, we've been married 55 years.
Okay, so what are we finding in there? Anybody? You're really not from Beacon unless you married somebody from Beacon. You all know that, right?
Yeah, that's my father, stepfather, Stephen J. Jr., my mother, Geraldine, George and Henrietta Seaman was my uncle. My father worked at Maddywin State Hospital, and we lived at 121 Sergeant Avenue.
Isn't that terrific? So come up and maybe make an appointment even with one of our volunteers to look at our city directories, and you'll invariably find out something you did not know before. Okay, this is my big finale piece. And again, I'm going to caution you, things that we find offensive today were not necessarily offensive in another time. And yet they are historic and they tell a part of our story. And so I'm going to share something with you tonight that some of you may find very objectionable, but it is a really compelling story about a different time in American history. So Willis Van Buren, no relation to me or my children. His father was Lorenzo, who owned the Van Buren Brickyards, which were down in Burnsville. He was a Civil War soldier, and in October of 1863, he was captured. His horse was shot out by a cannonball in a place called New Baltimore, Virginia. I've never heard of it, but he was captured, taken to Belle Isle, which was a famous and notorious Civil War prison in Richmond, Virginia. But in May of 1864, he was transferred to the worst of the worst, Andersonville Prison in Georgia, known for its horribly brutal superintendent, Henry Wirz. And so he was, regrettably, this guy from Beacon was sent to this Fishkill Landing at the time, to this terrible, if you're a Civil War student of any type, you know the name Andersonville would strike fear into the hearts of your family if they knew you were going to Andersonville. He spent 10 months there, and he later described it as hell upon earth. He became a police officer when he came back to Beacon. He hadn't seen his family for 3 years when he finally came home. And Willis's Van Buren's story of the horrific prison conditions actually took center stage in Washington, D.C. the next summer when, as a civilian, he actually went down to testify in the trial against the superintendent, Henry Wirz. Wirz is ultimately hanged, put to death for what he did to these prisoners. And one of the key witnesses is Willis Van Buren from Fishkill Landing, New York. On November the 10th, 1865, Wirz was hanged, and he was the only Confederate so executed after the American Civil War for what he had done to the prisoners there where Willis Van Buren was held. So many years ago, I think some of you might recall, and I'm talking many years ago, I was the president of the Beacon Historical Society for 5 years. And I received, I'm sure it wasn't an email at the time, it was probably 30 years ago, a call, I think, from a woman named Van Buren who did not any longer live in Beacon, but she was a descendant of this line of the Van Burens. And she had something in her possession that had been passed down from Willis Van Buren. She found it reprehensible. She did not want it, but she wanted to know if we wanted it. Now, when I hear reprehensible, I want it, right? So I met her actually at the Howland Cultural Center one day, and she told me the story of this item, which is by far, I'm going to say, one of the most unique items in our collection. Would you say, especially the connection to Andersonville, to Willis Van Buren, his testimony against Wirz. And she described it inside here. Actually, this was something I had typed up and laminated and put in the back. This is Diane Murphy, do you want to walk it around? You're going to find it objectionable, so just prepare yourself. One of those people on the internet where it says you don't want to read something, maybe you don't want to look at this. Okay, well, you can't take her out, so you're going to have to walk around the box. So I'll read to you what I had put in the box with this item when she had given it to me. This officer's boot jack. Everybody know what a boot jack is, right? You used to come in and you had big boots on. There was something there. You just put your heel in and pulled your boot out of it. Was taken from the Civil War prison at Andersonville, Georgia by Willis Van Buren, a Fishkill resident who, as a Union Army private, was imprisoned there from April of 1864 until March of 1865. Held by his descendants for more than 125 years, the boot jack was donated to the Beacon Historical Society in Van Buren's memory by his great niece, Beverly Van Buren Shaw, in 1993. And this actually is a picture of Willis Van Buren. So I'm going to guess it's in Andersonville. I don't know. In Georgia, go ahead, Diane. You can walk it around. It's a boot jack, so you would put your boot in it, if you think about it. I don't know what Native American tribe is located in.
I thought it was Seminole.
Seminole is more Florida. It just says boot jack, Civil War, Willis Van Buren. I would think Seminole is a little further south. So I'm ashamed that I don't know what Native American, but it is a Native American woman, and you put your boot into her private area to remove the boot jack. So horribly objectionable to us now with our sensibilities and our education. But think about the fact, and she said their family knew when he left, he pulled it off the floor and took it home as a souvenir from his time at Andersonville. And I believe he brought it to the trial, I think. I can't remember, it was 1993. I can't remember what I did earlier today. But an amazing story of a Beacon person and an amazing three-dimensional object that illustrates a very different time in American history, how we thought about, in this case, not only Native Americans, but women, and how degrading that is. And yet, if we don't tell these stories, how do our children learn that there was this kind of prejudice and this kind of treatment of people? So I apologize if you're offended by it, but it is, I think, a really unique item to have in our collection. And I don't know that we've ever taken it out or displayed it since 1993, so you're probably the first people that have seen it. So that wasn't a very happy note to end on, but I think it illustrates that this woman who had something in her possession from Beacon knew that we would care for it, and she wanted to make sure that it had a permanent home where it would be valued. So thank you to everybody who brought in items today. Do we have Vicki? We're not there yet, Vicki. You're so eager. My God. Chris, can you bring the bag up? Gee, I've spoiled you people with the darn door prizes. Okay, everybody have a door prize ticket. By the way, weren't all of our items tonight really interesting? Who doesn't want to be a member of the Historical Society and enjoy fun times like this? All right. Vicki, come on up here. Since you're so anxious, you can pull the first number. I've got two items. Hold on a minute. The first one is a copy of our wonderful book of Robert J. Murphy's 38 Years of Newsletters. And if you already have it, I'm sure that you have a family member or neighbor who would love to have a copy of it. You're really not a Beaconite unless you have a copy of this book. Who's with me on that, right? Not a true Beaconite. Okay, Vicki's going to pull. And I'll even let her read it out.
Okay, it's 079249.
That was her teacher's voice. Andy! All right, come on. We got to get a picture. Come on, Vicki. You have. I don't have my glasses. I couldn't tell you if it's true or not. Come on over here. Get the picture since you pulled the. We're going to take our photo.
Pulled it?
Certainly. Okay. All right. Now, if you didn't win, you don't have to be disappointed because we have door prize number 2. I want you to know that as we're sitting here in Beacon, New York, at whatever time it is, 6 hours later, my son is sitting in Italy, and where he's spending the summer working in the Army JAG program. And he's watching us live, hopefully. I don't know if you had anything come in internationally. He said he was going to. But for my next door prize, I have a souvenir from Venice when we just visited there earlier in the month. So if you still have your door prize ticket, Denny will let you pull the next one since you were a good sport tonight and always so supportive of us.
079255.
The last 3 numbers again.
255.
255, the last 3 numbers. Oh, Barbara, you're so... Barbara! Now, if you didn't know it, and I didn't know it, Venice has been for centuries a glass-making capital of Europe, and this is a glass wine stopper from Venice. So let's get a picture.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Barbara. Barbara is our secretary, manages our database, takes care of everything. Make sure those labels are done on your newsletter. Look for your August newsletter coming up. We have a lot going on at the Historical Society, and we do it because we love all of you and your enthusiasm for Beacon Story. Is there any other business that needs to come before the Beacon Historical Society this evening? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn from Mr. Meyer. Place adjourned. All right, thanks, everybody. Hope you had a good time. Okay.